Welcome to Arthouse Legends, where high art and geek culture collide. This is the MovieDude Eric, and I wanted to kind of talk about a movie that's been getting a lot of critical praise in the last couple of days with the National Board of Review, as well as the Critic Choice Awards, which was just had announced their nominees yesterday. Um, this was a movie that had gotten a lot of critical attention when it came out. I saw it about a month ago. It's a movie called Moonlight. Uh, it was something that I went in completely blind to. I didn't know anything about the movie going into it, and for the most part, it's a good movie. It's one that I can definitely recommend. It's a very unique film. It definitely has things that will make you think. Uh, that said, I've noticed that the critical response to this film has been extremely um, positive for the most part. And again, I think it's a good movie, but the amount of praise that the film has gotten um, has kind of had me a little perplexed. Um, while I think it's a great movie, I don't really see it being as good as what most of these critics have been kind of giving it. And we're talking about best of list, and it's gotten a handful of nominations, and it's been awarded several awards already. Um, and I'll get into that. I don't want to get too much into the film itself because I have a strong feeling that this will be something that will be brought up on an episode of Art House Legends, or that will be going into more detail as we get closer to the Academy Awards. And I'm pretty sure at this point that Moonlight will definitely have its day at the red carpet going forward. So I, this particular video is really more kind of uh, wanting to be talking about the critical response and why I'm a little um, I'm a little concerned by the amount of praise that this film is getting, um, primarily because while the film does have a lot of great elements, and the one thing that I will completely and utterly praise about the film is the acting. The actors, the performances are just incredible. Mahershala Ali, who, in my opinion, is one of the best performances this year alone. I'll go into why I'm a little upset about the film in regards to that. Uh, but it's a film that the actors really did put out their best, turned this material into something really interesting and really exciting. The director, Barry Jenkins, um, very interesting director. I can definitely see a career for him. Although, when I was talking to a friend of mine just last night about it, he did kind of bring up something that I found quite interesting, which is that he does definitely have a lot of homage to Wong Kar-wai, a Chinese director who also kind of deals in these same types of territory. Um, Not that that's a bad thing, not at all. But at the same time, though, his storytelling here feels a little forced. And I don't. In order to kind of make my point, I'll just go ahead and bring up the film is split up into three segments. It's about this one boy at three particular times. I want to say roughly around 10 years apart. One when he's like 7 or 8, one when he's about 17, 18, and then the last segment is when he's about 27, 28. Um, as a person who absolutely loved Boyhood, I'm fascinated by this particular pacing, and that in itself is not an issue. But one of the things that I found a little head smacking is the way that he kind of runs into tropes. It's a very tropey movie, and especially kind of stereotypes involving African Americans, which isn't as bad as things such as Tangerine, which I had seen earlier this year and find absolutely abhorrent. Uh, but there are characters and character twists that just felt like it was going down a checklist. And I kind of had a problem with that in that sense. And it's really saved by the performances. The performances are so damn good that as tropish as some of these things get, especially one particular reveal that was basically just telegraphed throughout the film. It just, I just had a real problem. My other slight problem is how it kind of forces this sexual progression of the main protagonist in a way that was ham-fisted and that would have been a lot better if it were given a little bit more restraint, allowed the character to kind of come in on his own and kind of give subliminal inferences as to where he was going and allow the character to kind of just feel it out instead of basically hammering it on the head really early on in the film. Again, these are I don't want to say they're minor nitpicks because they do kind of take away significant aspects of the film, but at the same time, I think that a lot of critics have been really quick to shower this film with praise to a point that it's not even about the film anymore. It seems like it's more interested in kind of getting on the right side of some sort of social, how do I put it? It's kind of like they're trying to be on the right side of some sort of social pact, some sort of social agenda, so to say. And to me, that's not what critics should be doing. A critic should be able to look at a film and kind of gauge it for what it's trying to do, both theatrically as well as kind of get any kind of social relevancy from it. But the thing is that I haven't seen critics really call out these particular problems, and especially considering that a lot have really given this best of year type consideration, which I'll go ahead and say it's not on my top 10 list, although like I said, Mahershala Ali's performance, in my opinion, definitely either number one or number two so far this year. There's another performance that's been just as amazing in my opinion, and it's one of those that it's really gonna be a tight one between that performance and this one. But this is something that I have a problem with when it comes to critics specifically, and one of the reasons why I don't really want to be considered a critic myself. I'm not someone who wants to have any kind of authority, so to say, more than just kind of be able to bring up interesting aspects to a film and to kind of create a conversation. And the conversation that Moonlight has, there is a really good one that can be made here, and one that I would absolutely be fascinated and excited about actually getting into in regards to roles in African Americans, especially young African American men, and the being able to wrestle the past with the future, the importance of role models. Is hiding your genuine nature in a facade of tough talk. This is definitely aspects that are interesting and engaging in the film, if the film were able to harness these conversations in a way that didn't feel like it was kind of pointing the finger a little bit. Now, this isn't as bad as Lee Daniels, especially with Precious and The Butler, where he basically stamped everything with his message. And, in those particular instances, both of those films didn't rank really high with me, simply because it had absolutely no subtlety. It had absolutely no finesse. And this does have finesse, and I have to give it to the filmmakers as well as the actors for giving it the finesse it does. It's just uneven, I think, is the thing that really gets me about the film. But I wish that critics, especially those that do consider themselves to be important voices in film, needs to be honest about Moonlight and its weaknesses specifically. And there are some serious weaknesses. And I think that anyone who kind of try to brush it underneath out of any kind of social stigma needs to really consider what it is that they're trying to what they're trying to sweep under. If we don't face the issue with these films out front, if we don't say, okay, there is an issue here that needs to be discussed, a negative aspect to the film, then we're not being truthful about the art that we're talking about. And that in itself will hinder any kind of future that this film has with the film-going audiences. Because one of the things that Arthouse Legends has really looked at as a podcast specifically is how films get all of this critical acclaim and this critical love, and yet because it gets on these hype trains by filmmaker or by film critics specifically, and they don't want to acknowledge that there's serious problems with these so-called classic films, that it marginalizes these films, and it actually hurts their longevity. It hurts the way that these films are perceived, because basically it creates this thing where audiences don't trust critics because it's now about a political agenda. And especially this year, where we've had a massive critical disconnect between audiences and so-called experts. And I'm not even talking about the aspects of like Suicide Squad, where there's definitely a reason why the critics had that response. But the thing is that they didn't treat that response in a way that it didn't treat that response in a way that kind of created a connection between themselves and the audiences that they're trying to connect to. They're playing to a smaller crowd now, and the ones that are playing to larger crowds don't really have an interest in looking at art for the most part. They're more interested in looking entirely at the entertainment value. So finding that middle ground is something that is being lost here in the critical community specifically. And that's one of the things that I hope to be able to bridge through the podcast and through this video channel. And I would love to have that conversation, both with people who don't normally see these particular films, as well as the critics that are, giving this kind of massive attention and applause. And I think that conversation needs to happen. But these are just a few of my thoughts on Moonlight as a sensation. Marshall Ali, I think, definitely deserves all of the awards attention. I'm a little sad that Naomi Harris is getting the. I love Naomi Harris as a character, as an actress, but this character
is not one that I really wish would be one that she'll be the most memorable to, and considering that there's a good chance that she is in awards contention for this particular role, simply because this character is very one-notish. It works for the film, but at the same time, I have a deep appreciation of Naomi Harris as an actress, and I really hope that after this particular film that she gets a chance to really show her wide range, and show that she doesn't be marginalized into the crack prostitute type thing. To me, it's a trope. It's an embarrassing trope, and again, it works kind of for this film because of what it's trying to get at. But no actor wants to be kind of marginalized into playing kind of a slum. It's just no. I don't know. That's just me. But if you have a different opinion about Moonlight, please feel free to talk about it in the comment section. I would love to hear what you have to say about it. And if you haven't seen Moonlight, I would recommend it. It's a good movie. And if you think that it's better than I'm giving it credit for, then I want to hear about it. Or if you think that it's a complete garbage and that you think that this is one of the worst movies of the year, I especially want to hear what you have to say about it. Because having differing opinions is what film and art should be about, in my opinion. But this is the MovieDude Eric and Fiend.